Welcome to the Legal Leaders Podcast, brought to you by InView, LawView's community for in-house legal professionals. InView's mission is to accelerate the evolution of the in-house legal profession, and with this podcast, we showcase modern legal leaders from across the globe. We explore their unique journeys and how they're driving the transformation of our new profession. Join David Lancelot, LawView's Chief Legal Officer and Executive Vice President of Advocacy, as he explores the cutting edge of in-house legal leadership. This is the Legal Leaders Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Legal Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, David Lancelot, the CLO and EVP Advocacy at LawView. And I have with me today, Kasper Hansen, who is the Head of Legal Operations at Arla Foods. Hey, Kasper, thank you for joining us.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Where are you coming to us from today, Kasper?
So it's evening, and I'm sitting here at the headquarters of Arla in Viby, Denmark.
Okay. And that's near Aarhus?
That's very close to Aarhus, yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And when we first met, which I think was at the InView London conference, I said to you that I had been to Aarhus before, at least a couple times. Aarhus is an absolutely beautiful city in Denmark, where eBay, where I used to work, had a pretty significant facility for a couple of our classifieds businesses. So I had the very good fortune to go there and even do a little bike tour of the city. Amazing library. Like the library there is just astonishing, right? Like way cooler than anything we have in the States. So yeah, great place to be. And maybe we can kick off, Kasper, with just a description of what Arla does for everybody in the audience.
Yeah. And so Arla is a dairy cooperative with around 21,000 employees. We are the biggest organic dairy company in Europe, and one of the major players in this area. We produce besides milk, cheese, and yogurts, milk-based beverages for Starbucks, Lurpak European brands mainly, Lurpak, Anchor, Castello, Cook, but we are present across the world with a heavy presence in Europe, of course, but also in the MENA region.
Gotcha. So everybody should think of healthy Danish cows eating organic, beautiful grass, and Arla turning that wonderful product into all kinds of great stuff, which makes for very tall and healthy Danes and Dutch and Germans, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. That's the picture we're trying to draw.
Yes. And as anybody will know who's been to Denmark, that is absolutely the way it is there. There are lots of tall, healthy people eating Arla products, eating and drinking Arla products. Make sure you have your yogurt for breakfast, right? So Kasper, as the head of operations, legal operations at Arla, that's a role that doesn't exist in even some of the biggest U.S. companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it really interests me that, certainly since we've been talking, how you got to be in that role at that company, right? At a pretty big, and we're not talking a tech company. We're talking the largest dairy producer in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Legal operations is a very sophisticated function to have. How did you get there? Where did you start your journey to get to legal ops at Arla?
Well, it's a good question. I guess this started way before I was aware. The function as such, we started in a couple of years ago, 3 years to be more exact. But at that time, or before that, I didn't know that there was anything called legal operations, and I don't think anyone in Arla did. So I think this is all still a brand new thing, also to us and the legal team. Still working to settle this and to really figure out what it is in an Arla context, because I think it's very different from company to company what legal operation means in practice.
And so did you start like with the thought in your career journey to go into the legal profession and legal operations? Where did that come from?
I guess so. I initially, back in my youth, I thought I was going to be an engineer of a kind. I always had this curiosity, interest in tech,
Mm.
really always looking to do things smarter, more efficient. So that is kind of the backbone of how I think. But I was convinced early on that I should be a lawyer. I think I was compelled to the thought of me arguing in court and all this kind of this picture of a typical lawyer. But I actually realized already during my studies that I would probably never be an excellent lawyer. I would be an average lawyer because I had other interests. I wanted to do other things than just being a lawyer. I found it too specialized somehow. And
Sure.
I think that's maybe also a common thread in the decisions I've made in my career since.
Sure.
More or
And
less
so,
aware, I would say. It's very coincidental, actually.
yeah. And I think early on you were PA to a CEO. Is that right?
Yeah. So right after I graduated from the university, I started this double role where I was intended to be a personal assistant to the CEO of a smaller an IP consultancy firm. Meanwhile, also being the in-house legal counselor. So we had IP experts advising on patent and trademark, but actually no in-house counsel. So that was a great challenge for me, being a complete beginner, a graduate from university. And on the other side, I also had this more strategical focus on supporting the management, looking into financials, PowerPoint presentations, strategizing all of this. And I think that's probably where it all started. That sparked my interest that there's more to it than just the lawyering part. But yeah.
Sure. So acting as a business person with legal skills, perhaps you could say.
Exactly.
Very nice. You know how much I love that phrase. So having, I think in your words, having sort of data on the business to analyze, to utilize, building an operational mindset, maybe?
Absolutely. I mean, I had various managers. There was a shift in between. This was a graduate position, I would say, so intended for someone early in their career. And my management changed from actually a former lawyer to a former CFO, and that definitely also reshaped the profile that I was looking into. So I really learned to be comfortable in Excel spreadsheets. I learned to do data analytics. I learned the appreciation of data, tracking all kinds of data. And I think that was maybe unusual for the typical young lawyer, but it has really shaped the way I think and the way I approach these kind of things today.
Yes. Well, I think that's a bit of an understatement to say that learning how to use Excel early in your legal professional career is unusual for a lawyer. I think Excel, I think it's fair to say that Excel is like garlic to a vampire to a lawyer, right? Like I still don't know how to use Excel properly after 20
I'm to be a master here, but I'm not scared of opening the Excel spreadsheet.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could do my own personal budgeting on Excel, and I still can't do that. Probably get a yellow pad out instead, right? And a nice sharp pencil.
Yeah.
Yes. So then you went more, I think, into into the substantive area, right? Into intellectual property.
Yeah, I was doing a bit of IP counseling at the consultancy firm because I had an interest, and because I also had the wish to get more into the weeds of the legal part of my job, doing a bit more than just whatever that comes up in a somewhat smaller consultancy business. And I was advised. I had really good conversations with my manager and also with a mentor that encouraged me to build on my legal background as a foundation to whatever I wanted to do. So I had something to fall back to, you could say. So I realized that I probably should either join a firm to be more trained. But instead, I decided to follow my interest into the IP world and joined the university to be part of their tech transfer office.
Right
So
on.
really supporting collaborations, IP protection, and commercialization of inventions generated out of the academic world.
So the world of higher ed, then, what we would call in the States higher ed. And as everybody, I think, who's listening knows, that there's an enormous amount of intellectual property work going on in those universities, all the innovation.
And
so
that
it must
led
Yeah.
to my job today, because at Arla we do quite a lot of research and development with academia. So I actually just moved to the other side of the table. Now I'm working with my older former colleagues at the tech transfer office.
Gotcha.
That's
Right.
last shift. And I guess here at Arla, I've always had that interest in how can we improve our ways of working. But especially here at Arla, there was an interest in actually utilizing that, bringing it into practice. So this was where my interest was sparked, but also my ability to actually act on it. And that led from starting off introducing smaller steps on my own part to really doing on the behalf of the entire team.
So, Kasper, for our listeners, and I think particularly in Scandinavia, maybe you can tell us your thoughts about the role and the impact of legal operations as a relatively new function and profession.
Yeah, I think legal operations, or the emerging part of legal operations, is still very young, and that's probably mirrored because generally, I would say, corporate legal departments are also growing in the corporate sector. So the maturity we see, if we go to the US, to Australia, or other parts of Europe where we have significantly larger legal departments, they also have more headcount and resources to invest in the operational side of legal. But what I believe legal operations is, at least for us here at Arla, is really to have someone who looks inside the department and make sure that we are working smarter, because everyone is occupied doing legal counseling to the business and their stakeholders, but no one is really looking inside out to see, okay, but how can we actually do things smarter? So I think doing more with less, all the bringing more transparency into what we're actually doing, leveraging the knowledge that sits in one corner over to the other corner. These kind of things is essentially what this is all about. And then I guess the actual steps may vary, because it's very different from how organizations are organized, how many people are there, what are they doing.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, from my perspective, and we've discussed this previously, I've seen multiple legal leadership roles in Europe, and particularly in continental Europe, recently posted or just sent to me. All of them have a requirement for new legal leaders usually taking over existing large teams, to a requirement that they have the skill set of building and leading a modern and scaled legal function, including legal operations. And I think more and more that will become one of the de facto requirements for a legal leader at all different levels, right? All the way down to, generalist business lawyers. Operational mindset is going to become a key requirement.
Yeah. And it's a perfect segue to one of my preferred terms, the T-shaped lawyer, right? Because
Yep.
I mean, typical legal departments is big on the vertical part of a T, and probably less strong on the horizontal part, which you can build and think that can definitely be developed. But there's also elements of the operational side where you can definitely gain a lot from introducing people with just another set of qualities or capabilities. So IT stuff, communication wise, project management, there's a lot of skills where a typical lawyer is at least not trained to do this. Some have a natural talent for some of this, but I think operations is also bringing in other skill sets than what we typically see from a legal department consisting mainly of lawyers.
100%, 100%. And I think the more our profession, the legal profession, particularly the in-house legal profession, evolves, the more we get towards this tipping point where operational mindset and the ability to scale the function becomes really a critical part of what you're looking for in your legal leaders and everybody in the legal department, and in varying degrees, right? Like, not everybody is going to be the head of legal operations of a multinational company, but everybody in the legal function, in a modern legal function, is going to have to at least have the ability to say, I've done that 3 times this month. That is not efficient. That is not effective. I need to be spending my time, partnering with the business and driving strategic objectives rather than processing another document in the same way I've done it 50 times this year. So,
yeah, I guess it touches upon a sensitive topic where this is changing. This is doing things differently than what we're trained to do, and maybe lawyers as a profession, I may be exaggerating here, but maybe we are resistant to adapt and by training that. So that is a significant part of this, also to accept the fact that things are changing. We have to adapt. We have to do other things than what we feel comfortable with, and I at least sense that a lot of lawyers, not just in Ireland but across the industry, have concerns or are not comfortable moving outside of just doing the counseling part of their job, but actually look into, okay, can I do things to improve and essentially improving my services to my stakeholders.
Yeah. Well, and I think there are obviously cultural and educational reasons for that. And, we are trained to be very detail oriented, to have an extremely strong work ethic. And those are great things, right? Like, we get the job done in a way that no one else does. You give a job to a lawyer, it doesn't matter what job you give them, they're going to get it done, and they're going to do it as well as they possibly can. They may not have the skills to do it because they're not, process engineers, but that's fine. They'll try really hard to do it. And that's a great thing. I think the thing that culturally is difficult for us is change management. We have, precedent is so important, and risk spotting and mitigating is so important to the traditional role of a lawyer. And we bring that in-house, and then now we're supposed to optimize how a function runs. I mean, that is a very different ask. And I think one of the reasons, and maybe you've seen this in your career, one of the reasons that lawyers can feel uncomfortable stepping into that role is because they don't have a partner like you. They don't have somebody who they can say, like, I don't want to be the person who takes on a big change management project. I want to be the person who says, I think we need a change management project, and I've got Kasper to help me do it. So anybody else who's got that, let's ask this guy. He's the expert. Have you seen that too?
Yeah, I think that's probably also an important part and a tough part of establishing a function like this, really to shape how we can aid the legal team, but also sometimes push them to get out of their comfort zone and actually jump into the things that immediately concerns them. But when they try it out with the right hand in the back and the right support, they actually find out that it's not that bad at all, and it can actually be done.
100%. Yeah, that's been absolutely my experience. Is there's a tipping point for that too. There's resistance, but change management is a skill, and once you get to a sort of 40% reduction in waste of time work, basically, then then you've got champions. Then you've got people who are excited to keep moving in this direction.
It's so cool when you actually reach a point where you see change being accepted and taken in. But it's by far the most challenging part of my work today is really to strike a balance on how you communicate, when and what you communicate. That's I guess that's a separate education, but it's definitely an aspect that's relevant for any kind of job.
Especially these days. So much change happening across our entire, basically, civilization, right? The change management aspect, the personal, the people skills, what we used to call soft skills, the ability to build trust and rapport, and then to prove that trust out with data, really, really valuable. And I guess that's a good lead into the characteristics you'd look for. And maybe this is a coaching opportunity for listeners, if they're looking for a legal operator, let's say, what should they be looking for?
I think typical characteristics of a legal operations or an operator is curiosity. Not first of all, you need to be curious on what's going on here, and you need to have an eye for, always looking to do things better, having empathy to really understand what is going on here, what are we trying to achieve, and convert that or keep that in mind when you develop new processes or refine processes or include technology to do certain steps of a process. I think when looking at on my own profile, or at least what I think is service mindedness, is also a thing that comes to my mind, because it's all about the user experience on the other side. At least that's something I find important to have in mind when you do legal work as well. What we probably sometimes fail to see is we're actually doing services to someone. So we have to be mindful of how is the service delivered, how is it received at the other end. And this is probably an area where we, maybe because of busyness, don't always have an eye for how is it received at the other end. So that's what I think is relevant. And then of course there's also about something about being not be too hesitating in doing things that you haven't done before, because
Right.
Working in legal ops, at least in an emerging field or area like in Denmark and Scandinavia, you will face things you've never tried before. So don't be afraid of moving out of your comfort zone.
So I think what you're talking about is sort of proactivity, and I think I heard this at Amazon a million times, but a bias for action.
Absolutely. Proactivity is key, because I guess what essentially also is a driver for us here at Arla is really to be proactive and stay relevant to our stakeholders. Because if we are reactive and await them come to us, then we are replaced by by clever AI solutions and people who can do it faster, smarter, and cheaper. So proactiveness is definitely a key word here.
Well, and business acumen, ability to integrate with the business.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. You will have different stakeholders when you move into this space. You will need to be able to speak the language of IT, the language of the finance people, other operations departments, which is really fantastic because there's so much to learn from them. But it is a different terminology. It's a different way of thinking, which you really need to adapt to. And I've experienced that on my own. That was a journey, but I also see really the upside of coming closer to them and having a mutual respect for what we do.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks nicely to one of the I don't know if you would call it the unseen values of legal operations, but certainly from my experience across quite a long time in this area, and some of the more sophisticated businesses in the world, the legal ops function plugs legal into the rest of the business in a way that the more traditional substantive lawyering, even with the best relationships and the best service that you can provide, cannot do, right? Because, like, as you're saying, and this has always sort of confused me, how it's obvious that HR has operations, and it's obvious that marketing has operations, and it's obvious that sales has operations, and of course, finance has analysts coming out of its ears. And there's legal providing what in most cases is a relatively traditional substantive legal service. But once you turn this engine on, the legal ops, the scalable engine, you plug into the infrastructure of the business in a way that doesn't happen in a lot of companies.
Interesting, and I guess we as a profession, have guardrails to have our own space and also make sure that we don't step out of that space. So maybe that's the reason for this haven't been properly introduced before. But I guess we start to see that to harvest all the benefits of learning from other areas. Also because when you have a close collaboration with this, they kind of expect that. So you also are expected from the business to speak the same language, to have the same goals by the end of the day.
Yep.
And maybe I think we as a profession haven't been really good at that, at least in the past. But that is shifting. And as you alluded to, new roles, new management positions is where this is an absolute requirement that you speak the language of the business.
Yep. Yeah, and I think what you're referring to there is moving towards more of an outcome-based approach to running the legal function, to leading the legal function, where you are driving strategic objectives rather than sort of being the reactive, almost like an in-house law firm, right? Getting work done. I'm very busy. We need more money. Doesn't really cut it anymore.
Yeah, but take the always stretched resource discussion. Lawyers are always very, very busy. Probably could use a hand or two more. And we've probably never been good at building the business case to argue for why is it needed, or what can we achieve, or how can we get to a point where it makes sense to employ someone new to the team, right? And I think that's at least an area where we see that by using data, when actually being able to demonstrate what with data how things are going, then it's much easier for us to come with a compelling story that is actually data based on what's reality here, and demonstrate why this is worth investing more into.
100%. I mean, exactly how I would say it, Kasper. I have to say, like, speaking the language of the business allows you to communicate in a much more compelling way, a much more compelling narrative about the impact of legal, and also a much more compelling narrative about how we're driving the objectives of the business as opposed to just sort of our own internal objectives, right? It's great to, I mean, first of all, it's super important that you know what's going on in the legal function. And operations can do that for you, right? It can tell you how much you're spending on external counsel. It can tell you how many contracts you're processing. It can tell you how many matters you're working on. And that is fantastic and almost should be table stakes, right? Like to think that the majority, even in the US, even in other countries, the majority of in-house legal functions don't have an understanding of what's actually happening in the legal function is kind of crazy. But it's true. It's 100% true.
It's definitely the case, I would say, in the northern Europe that we really are seeing, at least not in everyone, in all companies, but we're seeing a black box where we can't really pin out exactly how much we're doing of this compared to this, and use that to see, okay, but where's the potential in doing improvements? Where should we invest, either in tech or in additional resources or outsourcing or whatever the case is. But having this insight and knowing that it is of a trustworthy quality is essential to do anything on top of this.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the key sort of drivers for me for investing in legal operations and the people, processes, policies, technology that make up that, what I think of as the engine room of the legal function, is that there's so much opportunity to accelerate the business in legal, that when you have a part of your business that touches so much of your business, that has enormous opportunity for optimization, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you speed up how things are done, right? We're talking about like revenue and products and onboarding employees. And I mean, so many things that legal is so deeply involved with, just being more efficient, more effective, faster, better. You'd think that it was the first priority in a lot of organizations, but it almost, it's almost like they haven't even heard about it. But I think, now that we're at that.
Right. So we have a very unique position, I guess, at least as we see it. We are involved in the entire value chain of the company, from the milk is being prepared on the farm until it's consumed by the end of the day, which far from other areas of the business is involved. So we have insights and we gain data from this, and this is also something that at least we want to do later on, to make this data and available to other parts of the organization. So we make it part of our master data, essentially, because there's so much value in these metadata that we haven't seen before, and now we just need to find out how we can utilize this treasure of data.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And I think, as we go further and further down the road of generative AI, as a sort of accelerator of all business processes, legal just cannot be left behind by keeping our sort of traditional practice of not focusing on capturing information about what we're doing. Because there's so much value in the contracts, in the matters, in the communications with the business, with the firms, that absolutely can be turned into accelerants for the business. So it's almost like an obligation that we have. I mean, it's an obligation from a compliance perspective, and it's crazy that we're not doing it in most companies, and having, a single source of truth. But it's also an obligation from a future-proofing perspective. I'd say.
It is, and speaking of AI, I think, and data, one of the main challenges, I guess, for most legal teams is the quality of their data and the structureness of their data, and this is typically a place where we're lacking structure, and that is, in my view, essential to achieve anything in this regard. And there's no doubt that there's so much potential in bringing AI into so many parts of the legal work, but we struggle to really make the best use of it until we have improved the way we capture data and essentially the quality and
Yes, the accuracy.
the accuracy. Yeah.
Accuracy and structure. I think what we're seeing now is a moment in the development of technology where everyone is realizing that actually, if you want to use Gen AI tools for, like even for coding, everybody knows if you want to run Gen AI coding tools, you've got to have good code to train the tools on. Um, how we didn't get that in legal for a while is also one of those things where I'm like, how did that happen? But now we all understand that you need accurate training information, not just all the junk on the internet, like structured data from your company, policies, processes, um, contracts, etc., playbooks, and you need structure to it. Accuracy and structure, and that will lead to really great results from Gen AI, accelerating processes. And in order to do all of that, you need operations and you need lawyers with operational mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's so many great opportunities and interesting things that will happen for us as the profession, as a department, because we really have a great journey ahead of us, beginning to really utilize tech, not
Yes.
least artificial
Yeah.
intelligence.
And I think it's a great opportunity to improve the lives of everybody working in the legal profession. Right. A really great opportunity. I think it's awesome that Arla has you in that position to do that. Right. Basically the job of legal ops is to make the lives of all the lawyers there better, and in its most basic form.
The lawyers, but also the stakeholders. I
Yep.
see it both ways. But you're absolutely right. We are the engine room, or should be the engine room of the legal function.
Yep. And the broader business. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, Kasper. And thank you for your time. Really appreciate you, in the evening in Aarhus, speaking to the audience today. And thank you everybody for listening. This has been the Legal Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Lawview. See you on the next episode.